So today we're going to continue on in lesson 1.7, where we have the same learning goal as yesterday. I can solve equations containing absolute value expressions. So our first thing we talk about, we're going to fill in the blank here, is solve two-step absolute value equations. So yesterday we only solved one-step ones. So solve two-step absolute value equations the same way we did the one-step ones. You're going to put the expression from inside the absolute value bars. So put the expression from inside the absolute value bars into two separate equations. So we're going to do ones today that will have two cases. Okay? So the first thing that we're going to undo, just like when we were solving two-step equations before, undo the addition or subtraction first. So then undo addition or subtraction, whichever one needs to be undone to get the variable part alone. Then undo the multiplication or the division next. And at that point, now your variable should be alone. So we will start with our first one here where it says the absolute value of 4x minus 2 is equal to 6. So just like we said yesterday, that means 4x minus 2 can be set equal to any number or numbers that have a distance of 6. So we can set the 4x minus 2 that are inside those bars. We can get rid of the bars because we're now saying, okay, we're going to set it equal to things that have that distance. Well, 6 has that distance, so we set it equal to 6. But we also have another number on the number line that has a distance of 6 units from 0. So we can set our 4x minus 2 equal to that number, and that is negative 6. So we now have our two equations, our two cases. We'll solve each of them separately and see what we get for a solution. So we're going to undo that subtraction first. So we'll add 2 to both sides. The 4x is now by itself. And 6 plus 2, 8. And now we'll undo the multiplication. X is being multiplied by 4, so we will divide both sides by 4. And we'll have our first solution, which is x equals whatever 8 divided by 4 is. I get 2. So there's our first solution for this one. So now we'll go over and solve the other equation, the other case. We'll do the same steps. We'll add 2 to both sides first. And then we'll have 4x by itself, and we'll do negative 6 plus 2, which is negative 4. Now we need to divide both sides by that 4 that x is being multiplied by. And we will have our other solution, which becomes x equals what negative 4 divided by 4 is. Negative divided by a positive is a negative. 4 divided by 4 is 1. There's our other solution. X equals negative 1. Today we're still doing check problems. Again, you don't have very many problems to do in the homework, but you do have to do check problems along with them. Today, they will all require doing check problems, okay? So again, when we do the check problems, we write down the equation as it was in the beginning with the absolute value bars. And because we got two solutions, we actually have to do it twice. We use the same equation both times. We're doing a check problem, not solving. So now we're going to substitute into that. We're going to say we have the absolute value of 4, and that's going to be times 2, because we're going to put that 2 in there for x. Then we bring down our subtract 2, our absolute value bar. So all we're doing in this step is a substitution in place of the x, putting our 2. And now we're going to simplify that expression inside the absolute value bars before we take its absolute value. So we multiply before we subtract. So 4 times 2 is 8. So we have 8 take away 2 now inside the bars. And 8 take away 2 is 6. So we have the absolute value of 6. And now we can simplify that because we ask ourselves this question on the left side. When it says the absolute value of 6, it's asking us what is the distance 6 is away from 0. It is 6 units away from 0. Bring down our equal sign and our 6 from the other side. We end up with a statement that is true. 6 does equal 6, so we say it checks out. So our first solution, x equals 2, we can feel good about. Now we'll check out our other one. We'll put -1 in, substitute -1 in for x. And that's the only thing that gets replaced. Everything else stays as it was. So the x gets replaced with -1. Now we do our multiplying inside those bars. We have 4 times -1. That's -4. Let's change this to add the opposite, plus a -2. And remember, make sure you make those absolute value bars tall enough and so that they don't look like 1s. So now we have inside the absolute value bars a -4 plus a -2. That's a -6. And now we're to the point where we ask ourselves, what is the distance -6 is from 0 on the number line? It is 6 units away. So we end up with a true statement again and can say that it checks. We're feeling good about our second solution, x equals -1 also. So we have two solutions, x equals 2 and -1. Okay, let's go to the back side and see what's going on back here. Notice what's different in this one. We have the absolute value expression. So we have the 2x plus 8, the absolute value of that. But then outside the absolute value bars, on the same side of the equation, is a subtract 3. So at the top here, I say sometimes you will have to get the absolute value part alone before you can start. So sometimes you have to make a first move that will get that absolute value expression by itself, and then we can set up our two equations. So the first thing we're going to do in this is we're going to undo that subtracting of 3, get that out of there. So we have to do it on both sides of the equation. So basically we're just renaming this equation right now, saying I have the absolute value of 2x plus 8. These guys are gone. Bring down my equal sign, -1 plus 3 is 2. Now we're ready to do what we were doing on the front side. We look at that and say, this means 2x plus 8 can be set equal to any numbers that have a distance of 2. So we're going to set 2x plus 8 equal to positive 2 because it has a distance of 2. And we're also going to set that 2x plus 8 equal to the other number that has a distance of 2, which is negative 2. And now we're ready to solve this. So our first move is going to be to undo that addition. So we need to subtract 8 from both sides. The 2x is now by itself, and 2 take away 8, negative 6. Now we have to undo that multiplying by 2, so we'll divide both sides by 2. And we will have our first solution, which is whatever negative 6 divided by 2 is. Negative divided by a positive is a negative. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Here's our first solution. And now we'll go about solving the other one, the other case. So negative 8, or take away 8 from both sides, just like we did on the other one. We're going to have 2x by itself now. We have a negative 2, subtract 8, also known as negative 2 plus a negative 8. So that becomes negative 10. Now we're going to undo that multiplying by 2, so we need to divide both sides by 2. And we'll have our other solution. A negative divided by a positive is a negative. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So we have our second solution, which is x equals negative 5. Okay, we're going to check this out, but what we have to make sure we do is we have to check it back in the very original equation, because if we messed up along the way, we don't want to be checking it out in the wrong part. So we're going to go back to the beginning, and we're going to write down that equation just as it was given to us before we did anything to it. And again, we have to do it for the other one also, so let's just write it down the second time right away. We're just using the same equation and checking out both of our solutions. So now notice, I want you just to take note of something that I didn't point out before. It was set equal to a negative 1. And you might have been tempted to say, well, there's no solution to this one then because there's not negative distance. But we couldn't say that yet because the absolute value part wasn't by itself. We had to get that 3 moved first, and then if it would have still been negative, then we would have said no solution. But it ended up becoming a positive 2, so we could keep going. We couldn't say no solution. Okay, let's substitute first of all our negative 3 in for x. Just like in the last one, we're going to do the multiplication first inside those bars. So we have 2 times negative 3, which is negative 6. Notice nothing else changes. The only thing, we just did that multiplication. Then next we're going to add that negative 6 and that 8 together. We'll have positive 2 inside absolute value bars. And now we're going to say, okay. Excuse me. How far is 2 from 0? It's 2 units away. So we have positive 2, take away 3 on the left side now. We have one more step to do because we can take 3 away from 2 and we get -1. We have a -1 on the other side, so we can say that it checks out. Okay, let's do a check problem on the other one. We have a -5 this time to substitute in for x, and then leave everything else just as it was. So now we take 2 times -5, which is -10. And again, everything else just stays like it is. Now we combine that -10 and that 8 that are inside the absolute value bars, and we say -10 plus 8 is -2. Now we're going to get that the absolute value of -2 simplified. That is, those absolute value bars are saying how far is -2 from 0. It's 2 units from 0. So we replace it with a 2. And then we end up with 2 take away 3 again, which is -1. And we can say this solution checks out also. So we have 2 solutions for this one also, x equals -3 and -5. Okay, so this is what you will be doing in your homework now for tomorrow. Make sure you have the notes done, use them to help guide you so that you can know the process, the steps you should go through, and don't make up some new ones that will get you in trouble, because then your check problems probably won't go well either. Okay, good luck. See you tomorrow.